The Premier League is back, baby. It's the pinnacle of the English football pyramid and the top league in the world, with some quality players applying their trade week in, week out. Now, unfortunately, there has developed some degree of predictability in this league as of late, but that is keeping in line with many top flights across the globe, where they are increasingly becoming more and more predictable. But it's still fun to predict, and it can still throw up a lot of interesting results and finishes come the end of the season. Now, I've been lucky enough to watch my team Nottingham Forest play in the Premier League for a number of seasons now, and even seeing them get promoted, I know how hard it can be to not only break into the Premier League, but also to stay up there as well, especially coming up from the Championship without any parachute payments or anything like that. It's a real slogfest, but it's a joy to watch your team in the top flight of your country, and it's something that I will never take for granted. Just look at this badge. This is what it's all about, boys. And of course, this badge as well. But anyway, enough waffling. Here are my predictions for the upcoming 25-26 Premier League season. Now, it must be noted, it's currently the 13th of August when I'm recording this video, so the transfer window is still open. Transfers are very likely to happen by the time you actually see this video as well. Players may leave, players may join, but at this moment in time, this is how I see the Premier League finishing at the end of the season. We're going to go from bottom to top, and to start things off, in 20th place, I've got bloody Burnley. We're kicking things off with a newly promoted side, as is to be expected, I think. One of the three boys that have come up, Burnley, unfortunately looked the weakest. Despite winning 100 points last season, it's not looking good, to say the least. They have signed Kyle Walker, and while the football may be leaving him, his pace is definitely gone. I still think that's a great signing. He's got buckets of experience in the top flight. He's still a great player, has a brilliant football IQ as well, and for a reported £5 million, that is some brilliant business from the Clarets. Burnley also had a really strong defence last season, only conceding 16 goals, so adding Kyle Walker to that defence, that's good stuff. However, a big part of that, in their keeper James Trafford, has left to join Man City. Not what you want to see, but Dubravka has been signed, so that's a decent replacement if he is indeed going to be the first choice keeper for Burnley this season. He's not Trafford by any means, but still a very solid Premier League keeper. They have also seen some other important players leave, including their top goal scorer last season, Josh Brownhill. He was actually insane last season. Top scorer from midfielder as well is pretty insane, but he's gone now. And, you know, as not a replacement, I guess, maybe, they've signed a striker in Armando Broja. Don't really like this one. He's scored 3 goals over the past 3 seasons, with none of those coming last season. Now, he was injured in all fairness, but I still don't rate him. I don't think he's cut out for this level, personally. They've also signed Ugo Chukwu from Chelsea as well, who I think could be a solid bit of business. He's a very good-looking player. So yeah, they've done a fair bit of business, had a few players leave on frees that were surplus to requirements, but I just don't see them staying up. They also have Scott Parker in charge, who has never really done anything of note as a Premier League manager, and if I'm honest, I don't see him surviving the season either. Straight back down for Burnley, who'll probably then come straight back up, to then go straight back down the season after. The joys of football, eh? And then in 19th place, I've got Leeds United. So unfortunately, we are continuing with the trend of newly promoted sides going straight back down, as I have the mighty Leeds United. Now, Leeds won the Championship last season, level on points with Burnley, but with a much superior goal difference being the deciding factor. Leeds just scored goals for fun last season, netting 95 in the Championship, plus others in other competitions, which was 24 more than Norwich, who were the second best scoring team in the Championship last season, with 71 scored. Much like their rivals Burnley, Leeds have been active in the window, trying to pack their squad for the upcoming season, but they have signed quite a few unknowns who may perform, they may not, we really don't know. I like the look of that Nemecha they've signed, if that's how I pronounce his name, and I think that Longstaff is a very good signing as well, with the amount of experience that he can bring from the Premier League. That's some solid business right there. And it looks like they've finally signed a Meslier replacement after some of the clangers he dropped last season, with the signing of Lucas Perry, looking like that replacement. I can't really comment on the likes of Statch or Bijol, as I've just not seen them. I don't know anything about them, but they fetched fairly hefty fees, so I'm sure they're going to be decent. It also looks like they've agreed to sign Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who is currently a free agent after being let go by Everton. Nothing's been officially confirmed as of yet, but the deal does look to be done, so he could be turning out in a Leeds shirt next season. But the real question for him is, how fit can he stay? He's not known for his fitness, that man. So they may not get many games out of him, but obviously that remains to be seen. Also, Daniel Farke is still in charge. That is bad for Leeds. He never does well in the Premier League, and honestly, I don't see him lasting the season. Leeds should have taken the opportunity to replace him during the summer. I'm not sure why they didn't. Probably a bit of loyalty because he got them promoted, but he's not finishing the season, that's for sure. But either way, it's relegation for Leeds. Sorry, lads. I know you're a big club, but there's just too big of a gap between the Championship and the Premier League now. It's not happening. Sorry. And then in 18th place, the last team going down, I have Sunderland. Unfortunately, it's going to be 3 for 3 for the newly promoted sides. I think Sunderland have done the best business out of the three, in all fairness, and they currently do look the strongest if you look at the squads on paper. And that's despite finishing 24 points behind Burnley and Leeds. They won the richest game in football and have really shown that with their business. They made Enzo Laffi a permanent signing from Roma, but the real big moves are their signings of Habib Diarra from Strasbourg, Sam Nadinga from Brighton, Granit Xhaka from Leverkusen, and Mark Gui on loan from Chelsea. Xhaka provides some hugely important Premier League experience. He is a quality player despite the age he's at, and will just be very, very useful in the dressing room for Sunderland, even if he doesn't start every game. A very important figure to have when you're a newly promoted side. So some incredible bits of business from Sunderland there. And they've also seen the likes of Joe Bellingham and Tom Watson depart, but got good fees for those players and have recruited well to replace them. The difference from the Premier League and the Championship is a massive leap though, and it's one that I don't think Sunderland or any of the newly promoted sides will make, which is unfortunate, but that just seems to be the case at the moment. The money is not there for the newly promoted sides compared to if you've been in the Championship for even a season. You're a lot richer than these teams that are coming up, so it's very, very tough to survive. But if there's a team that I hope can do it, it would be Sunderland. I'm sure they'll give a good account of themselves anyway. They're a very big footballing institution, bigger than some Premier League teams, I'd argue. But I think that gap is too big for them to cement themselves. But we'll be there for that derby. I'm looking forward to it. It's a fiery one. We saw it in the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup last season. So seeing it in the Prem, quality. I can't wait. But unfortunately, I do have them going straight back down alongside Leeds and Burnley. Unfortunate, but that seems to be the case at the moment. And then in 17th place, just surviving, I have Brentford. Now, last season, I had Brentford to go down. But there do seem to be some real trouble this season. I think they are saved by the very large gap that is the Premier League and Championship. It's really hard to bridge that gap as a newly promoted side, and with Brentford being established in the Premier League for a couple of seasons now, they have the facilities, they have the money to prevent that from happening. Now, this has been a summer of change for Brentford. Thomas Frank has departed after the many years he spent at the club. He's gone to Spurs and has been replaced by their set-piece coach, Keith Andrews, in what is his first senior management role. A very interesting appointment, I must say. Brentford do like to appoint from within. They've got a track record of doing that. But to take your set-piece coach who's never had a role in first-team management to shove him into the Premier League is a very interesting choice. I'm not sure how it's going to play out. But in all fairness, who was there out there they could have appointed? They'd have probably sniffed out some manager from like the German second division with their data-driven approach. Who knows? It's just an interesting one to keep an eye on. They've also lost Mbeumo, who signed for Manchester United. He was a very, very important player for them last season, contributing to many goals and assists. And they've also seen the likes of Norgard, Flecken and Ben Mee all departing as well. Ben Mee, he wasn't really playing that much last season, but he had a lot of experience that was needed for a team that were quite new to the Premier League at the time. He's gone now. That experience is gone. Norgard was the captain, if I'm aware. He's gone as well. And then Flecken, their keeper, he's also off. But they have made some solid additions as well, with the likes of Milambu, KOD, Kelleher, and most surprisingly of all, Jordan Henderson. I think the Jordan Henderson signing is quality. He has a wealth of experience in the Premier League. He is a leader, that's just proven. And despite maybe not being the best at football nowadays, that's something that is really someone that's very valuable to have in your squad. A very senior figure who can help these younger players adapt to the Premier League, much like Ben Mee did when he joined Brentford. And he may not be there for the footballing aspect as much. He's still a really good footballer, but it's more for that, I think, the behind-the-scenes stuff that Henderson will offer will be very good, not only for Brentford, but for Keith Andrews as well. Having someone there he can rely on to help get the team playing how he wants. Good stuff. But I just think that Brentford look weaker than they did last season. And whilst Visser is still a Brentford player at this point in time, there is a massive cloud over his head surrounding his future, and there's fuss he's kicked up regarding leaving the club. Newcastle are heavily interested in him. Forest likely are as well, but he wants Champions League football, and Newcastle would be able to offer him that. It's going to be a year of transition for Brentford, but luckily for them, the gap between the Championship and the Premier League is just big enough for them to survive another season and then just pick up things and move on up the leagues next season. I think they'll survive possible relegation scrap, but I think they'll survive come the end of the season. They're not going down, realistically. And then in 16th place, I've got West Ham United. Another team that's going to be saved by the gap. West Ham have a quality squad. Don't get me wrong. Bowen is leagues above anyone below them and is guaranteed to score goals this season. Last season, we were banging on about the amazing window that West Ham had. It was phenomenal. The additions looked brilliant, but they ended up finishing 14th, and a lot of those signings didn't really have the impact that was expected of them. But their business this season has been good as well. Yes, they've lost Kudus, but got a really good fee from him from Spurs. And a lot of the older boys have left. You know, we've seen Kufal, Cresswell, Zuma, Ings, Antonio, and Fabianski all depart. That's a lot of experience going, a lot of proper West Ham boys. They were aging. They were getting to that point where they were probably more of an impact on West Ham than a bonus. So it was about time for a couple of those boys to leave, I think. They made the right choice there. In terms of additions, they've signed Tobido, who was on loan last season, alongside Hermansen from Leicester, who, despite the relegation that Leicester suffered, was brilliant for them. I'd go as far as to say he was one of Leicester's best players last season. A really good keeper. So that's some good business. Kyle Walker-Peters and Callum Wilson signing on frees are also some really good business from Southampton and Newcastle respectively. Callum Wilson, man, he just feels like a proper West Ham signing. You know, it just feels right seeing him in the claret and blue. Yeah, no complaints there. He is fairly old though, and they've let a lot of old boys go, so I'm not sure what the situation is with that one, but he's a good player nonetheless, so fair enough. You know, my only worry with this West Ham side, apart from them finishing 16th, is Graham Potter. Since leaving Brighton, he's just not been that good of a manager, to be honest. And we saw that when he was appointed last season. It was a very strange appointment, in my opinion, and it's not really paid dividends at the moment. Maybe he just needs a pre-season to get things going. Some managers do need that. We saw it with Nuno last season. And maybe, you know, they'll have a nice pre-season and things will get going. Things will start cooking. But I just don't see that happening. And personally, I think Potter will be sacked come end of the season. I don't think he suits West Ham. I just don't see him kicking on with them, really. Not sure where he goes from here, to be honest, but he's definitely not suited to West Ham. That's why I've got him in 16th. And then in 15th place, I've got Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, I think Wolves will be down there once again this season. But ultimately, they'll survive again. It's been a very interesting summer for them. They've lost two of their best players. The much sought-after Cunha has left for Manchester United. But after seeing his attitude, what he displayed at Wolves and what he started displaying at Man United, it's probably going to be better for the behind-the-scenes stuff at the club. The vibes are going to be better with Wolves, I think, now that he's gone. You know, despite all he contributed for them last season, his attitude was a bit disruptive, shall we say. Aït-Nouri has also left and joined Manchester City, and whilst he was brilliant for Wolves, his quality at getting the attack going and going forward for Wolves, his defending left a lot to be desired. He wasn't the most defensive defender that you've seen. He was still a good player though. Gonçalo Guedes, Nelson Semedo and Pablo Sarabia have all departed as well. They're not really massive misses. I think Semedo is probably the biggest loss of the three, being at Wolves since 2020. But it was, I think, time to go for him and the other players I've mentioned as well. But the permanent signing of Strand Larsen is quality. I really like him. He was on loan with them last season from Celta Vigo with an obligation to buy, I believe, which of course has been activated. He was really good last season, and I think he's only going to get better for them this season as well. They've also signed Fer Lopez and John Arias, who look to be some solid bits of business. Not really seen much about any of those players, but they look pretty good. They fetch some decent fees, so I'm sure they'll be decent. And also, they signed a bloke called Wolf, or Wolfie, which just fits the vibes perfectly. His name's Wolf. He's got a wolf tattoo. He's playing for Wolves. That's perfect. And also, Vitor Pereira has shown to be a good manager. That was seen towards the end of the season where Wolves were looking really, really good under him. And I think that he's going to keep Wolves up fairly easily this time around. I think they've finally got themselves a permanent manager. Fingers crossed, Wolves fans. But I like what he's doing. I think it'll be good for you in the long run. 15th place. That's solid. No relegation scrap, I hope. Possibly, maybe. But you'll be fine come end of the season. And then in 14th place, I've got Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth have been ravaged after their 9th place finish last season, with a lot of their quality players departing. The likes of Milos Kerkez to Liverpool, Dean Huijsen to Real Madrid, which is actually crazy, by the way. Real Madrid signing a Bournemouth player. What's going on there? And Ilya Zabani to PSG are the really big departures. But they've also lost the likes of Travers and Neto, which were both of their goalkeepers. So that's just been their defence completely decimated. But a lot of money has been raised. And Bournemouth have some really quality scouts at their disposal. So I'm sure they'll go to like the French leagues and just sign some really good replacements. That's what they normally seem to be doing now. They've brought in Petrovic from Chelsea to solve their keeper crisis, which is a good addition. I do quite like him. And that's alongside Adrian Truffert and Bafode Diakate, both defenders from Ligue 1, whose names I've probably butchered. So I do apologise, lads, but they seem like fairly quality players, so who knows. Their attack has been left fairly untouched at the moment, so the likes of Semenyo and Kluivert seem to be staying put, with Semenyo even signing a contract extension. They'll be fine. Their attack is quality. Areola is still their manager as well, and it doesn't like he's going to go anywhere anytime soon. I do think they'll have a slight drop-off from last season. They overperformed for much of that season, in my opinion, and with the departures, I think they'll drop down, but they're in no risk of relegation whatsoever. Just a standard mid-table finish. And then in 13th place, I've got Fulham. Now, Fulham, they've not really done much this summer. They've seen a player leave on a free, and Willian is out of contract as well. They've signed a keeper from Ligue 2, the second league in France. And that's about it, really. Fulham seem to be happy with their squad, and there's no complaints from me either. It's a pretty decent Premier League team. But they've not really strengthened, and when the teams around them have, I think they're just going to slide down a bit. It's natural. They'll be fine. Marco Silva, good manager. They've got a very decent squad. But with the teams around them strengthening, they're only going to slide down. Also, give us Adama Traore, lads. Please. Thank you. And then in 12th place, I've got Manchester United. Now, these lot were crap last season. There's no way about it. And as such, they've gone ham in the window in an attempt to make things a little less crap this season. Rashford joined Barcelona on loan, as he was never really in their plans going forward. He's probably going to flourish in La Liga, so I've got no complaints there. Lindelof and Eriksen have seen their contracts expire, and Johnny Evans has retired. But the additions, the signings, are where the real business is at. Cunha from Wolves for 62.5 million. Mbeumo from Brentford for 65 million. Šeško from RB Leipzig for 66.3 million. These are all very, very good signings, but they're all attacking players. This will come in handy a bit later. They have no European football to contend with, which will definitely give them a boost and drag them up the table. They've got less football to play than some of their opponents, so they should theoretically rise up the table while these other teams are dealing with Europe. But as I mentioned, those players they've signed are all attacking. Their midfield is crap. Their defence is crap. Their keeper or goalkeeping department is crap. They've not really fixed any of the issues. Yes, they're probably going to score a boatload of goals, but they're going to concede a lot of goals as well. And that's why I don't have them finishing any higher than 12th, because yes, you can score all the goals you need, but if you can't defend, what's the point? I'm not convinced by Amram at all. I've not seen anything from him that shows he's the right man for the Manchester United job, as they are miles off where you'd expect this team to be. I honestly think that we will see Amram sacked before the season is done. It's the Manchester United way after all. They sack managers, they sack dinner ladies. It's just what they do. I think Manchester United finished 12th this season, and that is a good season for them, especially looking at what's happened last season and the season before that. Amram is not the one. I hate to say it. Well, not really. I don't really like Manchester United, but I think he's out the door come end of the season. And in 11th place, I've got Nottingham Forest. The boys, 11th place. I think we slide down the table after the crazy season we had last time. Now, Forest have qualified for Europe for the first time since the 95-96 season, which is exactly 30 years if my maths is correct. Now, qualifying for Europe means we'll be playing at least 8 more games, but hopefully we're going to be playing more. I do think we make the group stages at the very least, or the round of 16 if we're feeling a bit lucky. Hopefully. But the main issue, the main crux of having European football to contend with is the depth. Now, that was a major issue for Forest last season as we tailed off towards the end, slipping out of those Champions League spots because we didn't have the depth. We didn't make any needed reinforcements. So we need to make sure we nail down depth this season. And it looks like we're focusing on that. Business has been slow, but it has been good. And most importantly, I think, is that we've kept a hold of Morgan Gibbs-White. So thank you, Mr. Marinakis. Our biggest loss has been Elanga as he joined Newcastle, but we have replaced him with Dan Ndoye, who I really like the look of from pre-season, and he may even be better than Elanga. Maybe a bold claim, he's not played in the Premier League before, but he looks really good. Big fan of that signing. We also signed Igor Jesus and Jair Cunha from Botafogo, who performed well during the Club World Cup, both starring as they beat and kept a clean sheet against PSG, with Jesus being the goalscorer. What a boy. I'm excited to see what both of those can do in the Premier League. We've also been heavily linked with James McAtee from Man City, who is all but confirmed. So it's fair to say that things are looking good. I do think Forest will drop down with the European football we've got to play. That's only natural. A lot more games for our players, so rest, recuperation, very important to make sure we can battle in the Premier League and in Europa League. Maybe a cup competition as well, who knows. But really, I'm just hoping for a lovely European tour and some safety in the Premier League, which I think we can do both. I'm maybe a bit delusional because I'm a Forest fan, but I think it's possible. And in 10th place, slap bang in the middle of the table, is Crystal Palace. Yes, I have the FA Cup and Community Shield winners finishing smack bang in the middle of the table. Daring, I know. And this would also constitute their highest ever Premier League finish, which they've also achieved on a few occasions before. I know they finished third in the first division, but we don't care. This is the Premier League we're talking about, from 1992 onwards. They've also got European football for the first time, well, ever. So it's going to be a new experience for Palace as well. Playing in the Conference League, of which they are and should be clear favourites to go and win, but you still need depth to do that. They've not been too active in the window so far due to the European shenanigans, which have been rumbling on with us boys involved as well. That only wrapped up a few days ago, so I think both Forest and Palace will be a lot more active in the window as it comes to a close, as the season begins. But yeah, they've signed 2 players so far, with Borna Sosa signing from Ajax, looks like a pretty solid player, and then some keeper from PSV who's probably going to be a backup. Crystal Palace have a quality squad, don't get me wrong, and as such, a lot of teams are circling some of their best players. Liverpool are trying to pry Guehi away. Liverpool are trying to pry Guehi away. Spurs and Arsenal are trying to tempt Eze away, and Newcastle are interested in Mateta. Now, all these players are still at the club for the moment, but that could change come start of the season or by deadline day. Glasner is still in charge, and we know what he can do with Palace. He is a brilliant manager We saw it at Frankfurt. We've seen it with Palace. He's going to bring them up the table this season. Now, they may have another slow start like they did last season, but they've won the Community Shield. That should be a little boost, a little booster for the upcoming season. Whatever happens, though, they're going to be more than fine. Very, very likely mid-table finish. This is Palace we're talking about after all. And a possible European trophy as well. They win nothing in their history to go and win 2 trophies in the space of a couple of months, and then another one on the horizon. Crazy. But they're on the up, so fair play. And in 9th place, I've got Everton. And you know what? I really like what I've seen from Everton. I think that it's finally time for Everton to, brush off their shackles and to start climbing back up the Premier League table. Maybe not challenging for Europe just yet. That could be a bridge too far, but they're definitely on their way. They have seen a lot of players depart. You've got Mason Holgate, Ashley Young, Calvert-Lewin, Doucouré, all like proper Everton boys, They've been there for ages. They're part of the furniture. They've gone. And they've brought in the likes of Dewsbury Hall from Chelsea. They made Alcaraz a permanent from Southampton. And they've got Travers as a backup keeper as well, which is all solid business. They've also signed a bloke called Barry from Villarreal, who's supposedly like the DCL replacement, challenging Beto for that starting striker spot. Beto's crap anyway, so he's probably nailed on. There's one standout signing I've not mentioned yet, and that is Jack Grealish on loan from Manchester City. That's brilliant stuff. I think, Everton is a good place for him to be. He doesn't have the weight of being a £100 million player on his shoulders. He's not playing for the best team in England. He can just knuckle down with Everton and, quietly cook. I think that's what he'll do. I like what Moyes is cooking at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. A very exciting lineup. And of course, Jordan Pickford in net. Quality keeper. He gets too many powders, man, just because he plays for Everton. He's England's #1 for good reason. Because he's a good keeper. And he'll do so once again for Everton this season. I have no doubt about that. The Toffees are just missing out on Europe, but building towards it. Everton are going to be safe as houses this season. It's a good start to life in their new stadium, which is, a bonus. Don't like the name, though. Should probably change that. I know you can't for sponsorship reasons, but just do it, lads. Like Goodison Park, that's clear. You can't have the Hill Dickinson Stadium, man. That's just goofy. But yeah, Everton will be fine this season. And in 8th place, maybe a bit controversial here, but I've got Newcastle United. Yes, I have Newcastle United slipping down the table. There is a lot of uncertainty going on behind the scenes at Newcastle, with this whole Isak situation being the biggest bone of contention, with their star striker refusing to even train or play as he's trying to force a move through to Liverpool. Players honestly have too much power nowadays. Like, back in the day, manager was told to fuck off and start playing. Now we can just do this shit. He's got a dodgy agent, to be fair, so it was always going to happen at some point. Anyway, Newcastle have qualified for the Champions League once again, but once again, I think they're going to struggle. Depth was their main issue last time around, and they've not really remedied that since. Nobody of any note has left. A couple of old boys have moved on, but no one really that important to them. But with their departures, they are failing to replace a lot of them. They're failing to secure depth players because a lot of their targets have said no and have gone elsewhere. It's not been easy being a Newcastle fan this summer, I imagine. Now, they've made a couple of sizings. The aforementioned Elanga from Forest, quality player, sad to see him go. They also signed this Malik Thiaw from AC Milan. I'm not sure that's how I pronounce his name, but he looks pretty solid. And Ramsdale on loan from Southampton. Now, we know what happens when a club signs Ramsdale. It doesn't normally end well. Bro's going to need Subway service on the screen so he can concentrate, man. That boy, he's a decent keeper, but even decent's being too charitable, I think. If he's the #1 for Newcastle, oh boy. I mean, Pope's not even that good anymore. It's looking ropes for the Geordies, I must say. And that's why I've got him sliding down here. I think, as I've said, depth will ultimately cost them here, but once again, the behind-the-scenes drama as well definitely is not helping things. Will Isak even play for Newcastle this season? That's the million-dollar question. Will Newcastle let him go to Liverpool? Who knows? There's a lot going on, and I think it's going to distract from the actual important thing, which is playing football. Eddie Howe's a great manager, but can he navigate these choppy waters? That remains to be seen. But if he can, fair play. Fair fucking play. But for now, 8th place. And then in 7th place, I've got Brighton and Hove Albion. Now, yes, Brighton have seen some of their biggest talents go, but I can still see them challenging for a return to European football despite that, and bringing in young players from the depths of South America and making them world beaters and superstars. They sold João Pedro to Chelsea for 60 million. Adingra has joined Southampton for 21 million. And Estupiñán has joined AC Milan for 15 million. Big players out, but they've brought in some big players as well. They've signed Charalampos Costulas from Olympiacos for 29.8 million. De Kuiper from Club Brugge for 17.5 million. And Tom Watson from Sunderland for 10 million. Some classic Brighton business. And that's not to mention they've still got the likes of Mitoma, Minter and Rutter within their ranks, who are all brilliant players. They're all brilliant players, and I'm sure they're going to perform once again this season. Hutzler has shown that he's a brilliant manager despite his young age and lack of experience in the top flight. And, you know, with some of the teams below them having European football to contend with, many of them for the first time in a while, or the first time in general, I think they can shoot up the table and challenge for some more European football, personally. I don't think they've got enough for Champions League football. I think that's just a little bridge too far for them at the moment. But a return to European football is still good going for Brighton, and I think they can achieve that with ease. And in 6th place, I've got Aston Villa. I do think Villa will remain around those European spots this season, as they have done for so much of their recent history. But I do think the Champions League may be a leap too far, especially looking at their current situation and the teams around them. They've seen a fair few departures, but nobody of real importance. I mean, Coutinho has finally left the club on a free transfer to Vasco da Gama. That's about it. Their backup keeper left as well, but again, nobody of real importance has gone. The incomings aren't really anything to shout about either. Their biggest signing was Guessant from Nice, who joined for 30.4 million. They've also signed Özcan from Kasimpasa in Turkey, and the keeper Bizot from Brest. Their depth is better, to be fair, and they have the experience of competing in Europe consistently. Emery is a brilliant manager and can get the best out of this Villa squad, as he has been doing since he joined, and they've got some brilliant players in their squad as well. Rodgers and Watkins being the standouts, and I'm sure they'll perform again this season. But even Marlon is looking quality in pre-season, so if he can bring it into the actual season, that's another good player for them. But I just think the teams I've got above them look just too strong to dislodge from the European positions. You're going to see why as I talk about them. Yeah, Villa are going to be in the top 6 again for sure. I think that's a given at this point in time. They look too good to finish below, really. They're a very good team. They've got the infrastructure as well. They're built for a top half, top 6 sort of sustained push. And I think they'll do so again. And in 5th place, I've got Tottenham Hotspur. I think Spurs will shoot back up the table with Thomas Frank at the wheel. Now, I really liked Ange, and he did win them their first trophy in yonks, but they were crap in the league, so it is understandable to see why they sacked him, as much as I may have disagreed with that. They've also seen Son leave, which will be a huge loss. Maybe not so much what he did on the pitch, he did kind of tail off last season, but it's more just his dressing room presence. He is Mr. Tottenham Hotspur, now Kane had gone. But getting 20 million for him is some brilliant business, in all fairness. They've done a lot of business this window. They've made both Tell and Danso permanent signings. They've brought in the likes of Kudus from West Ham and Polina on loan from Bayern. Some quality additions there. And they've also been heavily linked with both Savinha from City and Eze from Palace. Again, any one of those players or both would be brilliant business as well. No Gibbs White though, lads. Unlucky. This could very easily be a Champions League spot come end of the season, 5th place. It's not been confirmed at the moment, but they're also playing European football this season as well, which will be Frank's first time challenging in that competition. So we'll see how that goes. I don't think they'll win anyway, but Frank is a good manager. It's the biggest club he's managed, so we'll see how he adapts there. It could be another Graham Potter situation with Chelsea, who knows. I have faith in him though. I think he'll bring Spurs back up the table. And I think they've got the depth to cope with Europe as well. So yeah, that's a good season from Spurs, especially when they finished pretty much dead last if you don't count the newly promoted teams. Yeah, it wasn't good for them. So maybe they'll climb back up the table again. I think they will, but ultimately, who knows? Me and my ball knowledge know. And then in 4th place, I've got their North London rivals in Arsenal. I think Arsenal are going to drop off this season. Now, that's going to be a little of a controversial take, but please, just hear me out, okay, before you clip me and stick me on TikTok. Their outgoings aren't really important. They've got rid of the unnamed 31-year-old, which is good. Should be in prison, realistically. But other than that, nothing really to note. They have made some quality additions this window. Zubameni from Real Madrid, he was sought after by Liverpool last season and is a quality midfielder. Norgard from Brentford. Once again, another good midfielder, and he was their captain before they ripped him away. And Mosquera from Valencia looks really good as well. They've also finally signed a forward, a striker, Victor Gyökeres from Sporting. It's a long-standing issue that they finally sorted, but even with the capture of Gyökeres, I think they're going to fall a bit. I'll tell you why. They've signed Kepa, enough said about him, and also Madueke from Chelsea. Now, this is an interesting one. He's a right winger, okay? Remember that. But he's not better than any of the other right wingers that Arsenal have. You're telling me Madueke is better than Saka? Are you mental? But you've spunked £50 million on him, so he's not going to sit on the bench. They're going to force him out left, and he's not going to perform. It doesn't work. It's just silly business from Arteta. So yes, they do have a very good squad, and even with Gyökeres there, I think goals were still going to be an issue for them, especially from open play. Gyökeres, yeah, he scored a lot of goals in Portugal, but a lot of those were penalties, and he never really scored any headers. He just doesn't jump for the ball despite being a really tall fucker. So I think they're going to struggle to score goals. They'll need to challenge for the title. And also, I think Arteta is partially to blame here. I think he may have reached his ceiling with his Arsenal side. I don't think they can get over second, and I think they're going to drop down this season. He's done great things for the club, don't get me wrong. I know supporters love him. But from a neutral perspective, he does seem to be a very frustrating person to have managing your football club. And he always fails to get it over the line. And I think Arsenal are going to drop away this season because the teams around them have strengthened, they look a lot more balanced, a lot more consistent. So yeah, Arsenal in 4th. And in 3rd place, I've got Manchester City. And this may be another rogue shout from me, but I think that Man City and Pep's reign at the pinnacle of English football is slowly coming to an end. Yes, they've still got a quality squad, but a lot of these boys are aging or have left. Gundogan, Kovacic, Stones, Ederson, Bernardo Silva, Nathan Ake and Akanji, they're all 30 or over. Now, while that is young in the grand scheme of things, and footballers are playing till they're a lot older nowadays, that is still where you start to see players dropping off. That's just a fact of the game. And they've also seen the likes of Kyle Walker and Kevin De Bruyne depart. Many important players for City. I think the experience that both Kyle Walker and De Bruyne had and what they brought to City will be huge misses, especially in the dressing room for Kyle Walker and on the pitch for De Bruyne. Yes, he was injured quite a lot recently, but he's still an amazing player and would have got them points just on his own, picking and scoring goals from nowhere. So big departures. But they've also done some good business in the window. They've signed Reindeers from AC Milan, Aït-Nouri from Wolves, Cherki from Lyon, and Trafford from Burnley. They've also been heavily linked to Donnarumma recently, who seems to be leaving PSG as well. Trafford may be a bit aggrieved by seeing Donnarumma signed for City as well. I imagine he was going to be playing rotation with Ederson, as Ederson seems to be on his way out, with Trafford then cementing himself next season. But with the addition of Donnarumma, that could definitely put a spanner in the works for old Jimmy Trafford. Who knows? It's not official yet, so we can't really bring that into account, but just something to think about. Pep, though, he's still a quality manager, and he has quality players at his disposal, like Haaland, Marmoush, and Rodri. So, they're all quality. They're still going to finish very high up in the table. But something's just telling me that they're not going to be able to get it over the line this season, much like they didn't last season. The two sides I've got above them just look better equipped to challenge for the title this season. They look a lot more settled, a lot more balanced. So I think Man City finished 3rd. So yeah, if you're looking at the table, that means there's only 2 sides left. One of them is in 2nd, of course, and one of them has to win the league. And in 2nd place, coming runners-up, Chelsea. Yes, I have Chelsea in 2nd. I think a lot of people are underestimating Chelsea coming into this season. They finished 4th last season, but won the Conference League and the Club World Cup in what was Maresca's first season managing in the top flight and in Europe as well. They've got a crazy squad, as you'd expect with the money they've spent, and once again, they've been active in the transfer window. They've signed the likes of João Pedro, Jamie Gittins, Hato, Lindelof and Estavio among others. Those are the big ones. But they've also seen a lot of departures as well, with the aforementioned Madueke, Petrovic, Ugachukwu, Dewsbury Hall, Broja and Kepa all departing. They've got a very balanced squad, as I've said. Some insane depth for the Champions League as well. Chelsea are looking really, really good coming into this season. Obviously, Cole Palmer's at the club, Reece James, some of their best players aren't going anywhere. Nicholas Jackson may be out, but he's a bit of a chaos baller anyway, so that may be a bonus for them as well. And I just really like the signing of Liam Delap. I wanted him at Forest from the moment the transfer window opened. Unfortunately, Chelsea swooped in, but what can you do? They've got Champions League football at the end of the day, and I think they'll be challenging Liverpool for the title. So yeah, I've got them in second. And finally, the big boys who I did just let slip, to be honest. I have Liverpool winning the league once again. I think Liverpool are going to successfully defend the English crown. They strolled to the Premier League title last season, which was Slot's first season in the Premier League, and they played very impressively. They had it wrapped up by like March, which is mental. This coming season will be a lot harder, but I have faith that Liverpool will win the league again. They've spent a massive chunk of cheese in the summer, and I really like a lot of the business they've done. But let's look at those departures first. Luis Diaz, Darwin Núñez, Jarrell Quansah, Kelleher, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Tyler Morton and Nat Phillips have all left for fees. They've raised a lot of money in player sales, and that's allowed them to spend big this summer. They spent around 90 million net if you count all the departures, and that is with the likes of Freddie Woodman, who was free from Preston, Jeremy Frimpong from Leverkusen, Milos Kerkez from Bournemouth, Hugo Ekitike from Frankfurt, and Florian Wirtz from Leverkusen. Brilliant business. A lot of those players, quality. I think they signed Ekitike as like a fuck you to Newcastle for not giving them Isak, but they could still get Isak as well, which would be pretty funny. Perfect signings for a touted defence and to go on leaps and bounds as well in the other competitions too. They've also been heavily linked with a move for Guehi from Palace and Isak from Newcastle as well. Both could happen. They look unlikely at the moment, but there have been heavy links between the two players in this club, so who actually knows with like the 2 weeks we've got left. Slot is cooking something crazy at Anfield, and it doesn't look like he's done yet. They were the best team in the league last season, and they've only gotten better. So once again, I see them winning the league. And if they sign Isak, it's not even close. That would be a joke of a side, oh my god. But even without him, they're winning the league. No questions about it. So yeah, that has been my predictions for the upcoming 25-26 Premier League season. How do you think I've done? Do you think I've been, very biased for Forest? Do you think I've treated other teams too harshly? Please let me know in the comments below. But this is how I think the Premier League is going to end, using my massive ball knowledge that we know I have. I've been O2GT, that has been my Premier League predictions. We've got some fun videos lined up, I hope. So please subscribe if you want to stick around for those. Give the video a like, it does help me out. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.